beginning a new study you like to title Why the Wilderness. And it's a wilderness season for every masterpiece of God. And because God considers you as his masterpiece, that is why he will take you through the wilderness. So in as much as you are excited that you are God's best, you are his point, you are his workmanship, you are his arrow, you are the one through whom he's going to conquer nations, you must realize that God must take you to the wilderness, because there is something that you can learn only when you go through the wilderness. But we want to go a little bit deeper. Now let's go to Exodus chapter 13, the verse 17 and the verse 18. Something very interesting. As I said, we're just be doing a background study. We're not really looking into just going around it for tonight. Now, Exodus chapter 13, the verse number 17. Now, listen to something very interesting. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh had let the people go, listen to this part, that God led them not through the way of the Philistines, or not through the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For God said, lest peradventure the people repent when they see war and they return to Egypt. Verse 18. But God led the people about by the way of the wilderness, by the Red Sea, and the children of Israel went up armed out of the land of Egypt. Now, I don't know if you got what we are reading. Now, the Bible is telling us that when God took Israel out of Egypt, there were two ways by which they could have entered the promised land. One of them was through the land of the Philistines, which was a shorter route, and the other one was through the wilderness. Now, if you just do a little study, you realize that if God had taken them through the land of the Philistines, they would have used 3 days to get into the promised land. But God said that if I take them through that land, these people would see war, and when they see war, they would run back to Egypt. This is very important about how God deals with us. So the Bible said that God did not take them through that route, but God took them through the route of the wilderness. And now the interesting thing is this, that the journey using the wilderness would have taken 11 days. As I said, using the land of the Philistines would have taken 3 days. But because God didn't want them to see war, knowing that when they see war, they would return back to Egypt, he decided to use the wilderness. But the interesting thing is this, the wilderness would have taken them 11 days. 11 days. But some way, somehow, it took them 40 years in the wilderness. I don't know if you're catching this. I really struggle to find out how a journey that takes you 11 days, you could prolong the journey to an extent that it takes you 40 years. And this is very important for us to study. Why did the journey prolong for that long? And why did God choose the wilderness? And this is very important for our walk, because many a times we are blaming God for many things that happen in our life. And you want to know how well do we flow with God. Now, the first thing Exodus is telling us that is God would have taken them through the land of the Philistines. But what changed the mind of God? And I'm using the word change for the lack of a better word. Or why did God take them through that land? It was because the Israelites, when they see the Philistines or when they see war, they would run back to Egypt. In other words, how God or how God deals with you is dependent on how you are willing to flow. Israelites were mature enough to be able to trust God through the land of the Philistines. God would not have taken them through the wilderness, but because of their immaturity, because of their unrenewed mind, because of their lack of trust in God, God had to take them through a safer route. And even with that route, which has taken them 11 days, it actually took them 40 years. And you want to just do a little study. But now the basis is this, that God deals with you, how you flow with him. That is why it is important for a Christian, not the underlying word, to be matured. Because remember, the reason why I'm saying a Christian is because God is interested in training his children. He chastens his children because they are the ones that have submitted to his lordship. So they are the ones that he trains. And because you are his child, God will train you. But the issue is how willing or how malleable you are to be trained by God, and how well you flow with God will detect that God will use to take you to your promised land. So if the Israelites were mature, they would have taken 3 days. So even the 11 days, some way, somehow, they made it 40 years. And this also gives us a hint that many a times, the reason why so many prophecies, so many words concern our lives, we are not realizing them, is because we ourselves are robbing ourselves from the realization of prophecies and the will of God concerning your life.